Hello and welcome back to 3 Questions, the show where I ask someone I admire 3 questions about their career. My name is Jake Strong, and again, I just want to say thank you so much for the overwhelming positive response so far for these episodes. Thank you to the listeners worldwide, right here in the US, in the UK, the Netherlands, Germany, Japan, and there are way too many more to name. It's crazy to see that this little project of mine has garnered a worldwide audience. Today we have a hilarious performer and magician, David McCreary. David is one of the magicians that blends sleight of hand and comedy seamlessly and leaves you both laughing and mystified. His Penguin Live lecture is one of my favorites and gave me a great look into how he curates his material. David's 3 answers talk about how he balances magic and comedy and gives us a look into his current and future tattoos. If you want to look at some of his tattoos as we discussed, head over to our Facebook page at 3 Questions with Jake Strong. Let's get right into it. First and foremost, David, I just want to say thank you so very much for coming on this. This is a huge pleasure for me.
Thanks for having me. It's weird to me that people get hold of me and they want to talk to me. So I really appreciate it. Makes me feel important.
Yeah, and truly, I love watching you perform. It's because you're one of the few magicians that's able to blend comedy and magic seamlessly, because a lot of comedy magicians have a ton of comedy, barely any magic, or a ton of magic and barely any comedy. So my first question to you is, how have you been able to kind of maintain that balance between both strong magic and funny jokes throughout?
That's a good question. I guess I don't write like material. I probably should sit down and write stuff, but I have to be performing in front of somebody to actually come up with new stuff. But as far as the joke, I think I'm just this talking about myself is weird, but I think I'm just a funny guy. I try to make people laugh all the time. It doesn't work all the time, but that just kind of works in, because it's not that I necessarily tell many jokes in my show. I just have a lot of fun, and comedy comes from that. I mean, there's stuff that happened that's definitely comedic, and I consider myself a comedy magician, but it's not like I'm telling jokes like a comedian would. Although I've done that before. I was hired by a local radio station back in 2000, right at the beginning of 2000, to host. They were doing a clean comedy night at a comedy club here in Columbus, and they needed somebody to kind of MC it. So they didn't know at the time that I was a magician. So I had a chance to do some of my magic. And then after that first week, I'm like, I need to just start writing some straight stand-up. And just because I've got an audience, and just try it and see how it goes. And I had a blast with it, and I've thought about doing it again. I need to be more motivated to sit down and write jokes. I've got buddies that are stand-up comedians that are great. I love stand-up comedians. But as far as my stuff, I think it's just the comedy that happens from it is just kind of natural. It's who I am, If that makes any sense. It's kind of a weak answer.
Yeah. That makes total sense, because that's one of my favorite parts in a lot of magic performances, because I feel like there are 2 different types of comedy routes you can go. It's either joke, set up punchline, or it's just kind of whatever happens in the moment. And I feel like that's something that I love, that I always see whenever you perform.
Yeah, and that a lot of those are, some of them are in the moment, which is a lot of fun. But then some of them are now constructed to happen again, if that makes sense. So the SpongeBob Monty trick that I do, depending on which every once in a while, I don't know which version if you've seen that. At the very end, we're playing SpongeBob Monty with one sponge ball, and then a lot of times somebody will squeak a ball that's not even in play, and that happens every once in a while. The first time it happened was an accident. They just squeaked one that wasn't in play. And I was like, everybody laughed about it because I made the one that should squeak. This is going to make no sense to anybody who hasn't seen the trick yet. But
it makes sense to me.
Right? So now I try to make them squeak the one that they know without a doubt shouldn't squeak. Another thing I do that this may make more sense to people. I do SpongeBalls over the head coming out of my SpongeBall routine, but I start with just putting the ball in one hand. They have to tell me which hand it's in. So at one point I was in Michigan, and I put the ball in my left hand, and I said, which hand? And she said, the right. And I said, nope, I'll give you a second guess, which was the first time I'd ever said, I'll give you a second guess, which is kind of funny when there's only 2 guesses. She goes, the right. So she guessed my right hand. She took 3 guesses to figure out which of my 2 hands the ball was in. And the people loved it. You know, I pointed down and said, why, how does it take you 3 guesses to figure out which of my 2 hands the ball is in? They loved it. So I'm like, I got to make that happen more often. So now when I put the ball in there, if it's in the left hand, they say right. I try to put my hands together for a second, make eye contact, but keep it up here so they can kind of see my hands come together and say, I'll give you a second chance, so that they think maybe he did something. So it kind of forces them into saying this hand again, which gives me the joke. Well, I really didn't do anything. It's not really in this hand. So a lot of stuff that I try to make look like it's happening for the first time isn't happening for the first time. But most comedians are doing that kind of thing.
Yeah. And do you kind of give yourself moments within your act where you're able to just have fun and just kind of be unscripted and find those things? Or does it just kind of come up?
I think it just kind of comes up. Trying to think if it's been almost a year now since I've done my stand-up show. I'm trying to think if there's anything. I love though when stuff just happens for the first time and it gets a good laugh. I don't know if there's anything where the audience has a chance to be like creative or funny, unless it just kind of happens naturally.
Yeah.
I should figure out something where the audience can have more fun, and it's like the trick where people are drawing pictures and stuff. If you give them a chance to do something funny, then you get a lot out of that. I have done drawing tricks where people draw, and I've gotten some humor out of what they've drawn because they're funny. A lot of times though, you'll get people on stage that think they're funny and they kind of take the show and run with it, and at least that bit. And it's, you gotta go with it and have fun with it. But there's times when you're like, please just let me kind of run the show and you'll see. Obviously I don't say that, but just let me lead, you follow, and we'll have fun. So I don't know. It's a lot of it just happens. I just get up there and I really have a blast doing my show. When I go on stage, I'm excited to be in front of folks. It's not work to me. Not that maybe most performers, it's not work for them because you're doing what you love to do. But I mean, I can't wait to get out there and make people laugh and have them make me laugh. And it's fun. It's a blast. Mm-hmm.
And one of the funniest things is whenever someone's really, really funny on stage, most likely they're not trying to be funny.
Right.
That's one of the things that I find amazing. It's the funniest people up on stage are the people who are just being themselves, and everyone is laughing so hard.
Exactly.
Trying to be themselves.
Yeah. If you just come up on stage and be natural, if you're with somebody who is trying to make the thing funny, you're going to be funny and we're going to have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then kind of transitioning into question 2. So another thing you offer in your repertoire is mixing magic with a message to kind of motivate kids to find their purpose. So, so how do you think magic helps to supplement kind of a motivational message for kids?
So I got picked up by Speakers Network 5 years ago, maybe. I was doing my stand-up show at like a youth group event. And the guy came up, he hadn't even seen my show. No, he saw my show, but I was going to speak to him later, just randomly. It wasn't something I did on a regular basis. And he came up to me and said, hey, look, I'm leaving, so I'm not going to hear your talk, but have you ever been interested in speaking at high schools and middle schools? I'm like, I have before, not like on a regular basis. I have before, but yeah, let's do it. So long story short, I ended up speaking at high schools and middle schools. I actually speak at one this coming Monday, virtually, which is going to be rough for me. Again, we talked about that earlier, that virtual stuff. Anyways, so when I do the magic that I do in the talk, the talk is anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour long, however long their class is when I go in to speak to them. And I'll start off with a couple tricks just to get them laughing and having fun. And then I may do one trick that kind of ties with part of the message. But with my magic, what I tell them, the fact that I do magic is one of the points I say 3 things. Learn more, laugh more, love more is what I break it down to. Mm-hmm. Learn more, though, breaks down in finding something you love to do and learn more about it. I tell them when I was young, if I wanted to learn about something, I had to go to the library, which nothing wrong with libraries, but I had to get a ride there. I had to find the book I want. If that's not the book, I have to go find another book. Now they have the internet is at their fingertips. They can find anything out that they want to know. So I tell them, you all have a passion. You all have something that you like, no matter how small or how goofy you think it is, you all have something that you love. I said, for me, it was magic. So when I walked into a magic shop 29 years ago, when I was 20, I had no idea where that magic would lead me. But by taking time to learn some magic, I believe that the magic that I've done for the past 29 years has led to the television stuff that I do now. It's led to some amazing opportunities that aren't even really related to magic. It relates as far as like being in front of people, performing, knowing how to talk to folks, one-on-one and entertaining. But I honestly believe the magic has gotten me to where I am now with all the other type of entertainment and work that I do. So that's where I kind of tie the magic in. The magic that I actually do on my show, other than the one trick, doesn't really tie in. It's just there to have fun. But I use the message of me learning magic and really sticking to it to tell them, I've performed all over the place. I've met some really cool people and famous people, all because of, the magic that I took time to learn about 29 years ago.
Yeah. And I can imagine it's great to give the visual of, hey, this is what following a passion has led to give all the kids when they're there.
Right. Yeah. And you want them, because, you're talking to middle school and high schoolers, and they all think they know it all. We all did when we were that age. And I'm just listen to me. Just take time to learn something and stick with it. And if you're into, for some reason, a lot of like CSI type stuff, I've heard that a lot. Like I'll ask them, raise your hand if you love something, and I'll ask them. A lot of times I hear CSI. I'm like, have you looked that up? Have you done any research on it? And a lot of them are like, no. I'm like, well, look into it. I mean, if you enjoy watching TV shows about it, look into it, learn a little more about it, and who knows? You may do it and love it for a living. You may get into it and like, this isn't for me. But you don't waste anything. You learn some information. You become a little smarter. And I'm just trying to, when I do my talk at the middle schools and high schools, it's more about what to do as opposed to what not to do. So I don't want to get up there and say, don't do this, because they've heard that and they're going to hear it forever. I'm 50 and I still hear it from my mom, what to do and what not to do. So it's never going to go away. So I figure I give them something to do as opposed to not to do.
That's awesome. That's the perfect message for all middle school kids, because I've sat through those assemblies where they say, don't do this, don't do this. Don't do that.
And I can just imagine. I mean, I can remember I was a good kid anyway, so I wasn't doing that stuff, but I just imagine sitting there and just tuning them out immediately. Like you're telling me the same thing. My folks are going to tell me when I get home tonight. I've heard this before. I know, don't do drugs. I know. You're way. The fact that I'm out of class, I appreciate that. But we could be doing something more fun than just you telling me what not to do.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then kind of getting to the final question. So I love that one way you express yourself is with the 10 tattoos in total that you have all over your body.
11 now.
11? You got an 11th?
I got 10 and a half. I go back Tuesday for the color in it.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
What is it and where?
It is up here. Hold on a second. See if I can pull my arm out I got a t-shirt on under this, so it shouldn't be too bad. So my son is a firefighter. My stepson is a farmer, like an intense farmer, like really impressive stuff. So I got, I don't know if I can, there it is. So it's, I can see that. Let me pull this a little closer.
Yeah.
So it's in a circle, but the fire truck up here, you got the tractor down here, I got some corn stalks and some fire up here, but it's going to be colored next week. They're kind of supposed to look kind of like toys, but the fire truck for my son and the tractor for my stepson.
That's awesome. And and the one that I wanted to ask, because you have bad with names right on your arm. I'm so curious what the inspiration for that one was.
I'm bad with names. So I really am. I'm awful with names, and it embarrasses me. Like my wife is like, it's because you don't care. I'm like, no, I do care. I'm just really bad with names. I joke around about I have her name here, and I tease that I got her name there because I called her wifey for the first 3 years. Couldn't remember her name. But it's funny that I got that in Nashville. I love Nashville. So we go to Nashville every once in a while. And I've gotten 2 or 3 while I'm in Nashville. That was the one I went on my last trip. I got, but I came up with it because of the fact that I am just really bad with names. And it's bad enough where if I'm doing like strolling magic and I have somebody, I'm like, what's your name? Jeff? Okay, Jeff, do me a favor, reach in there, grab a card. I'll turn away and show it around. And then when I turn back around, I have to say, I'm sorry, tell me your name again. And he's like, Jeff. So now I've got like the guy that tattooed it said, you got your get out of jail free card now. My fear though, is that people are going to know about that. And like people I grew up with, like people from my old church or something are going to be like, hey, I heard you guys, you know my name though, don't you? And I'm going to be like, oh no, I don't. You're like, we grew up together. How do you not know? It's bad. It's bad. Like somebody can tell me their phone number and I'll remember it for years, but a name, it really does bother me. So I had to get on my arm.
My saving grace has sometimes been a name written on the card. I will have to look at that to visually remember that that's the name and then get back in.
Yeah. I'm trying to get better. The game show that I do here in Ohio, we have a comedian that entertains the crowd beforehand. And I've worked with him many times, obviously there at the show, but also we've done shows together. And he is brilliant when it comes to learning names. Like, and it's just from years of him talking to people in the audience, riffing with them in the audience. And like, he'll entertain the crowd at the show. He'll entertain them before they come into the studio. And then when they get in the studio and we start shooting, like an hour later, he's still calling them by name, 10, 15 people. And I'm like, that is crazy to me. We have these folks will come out, we sign autographs. It's weird. We sign autographs after the show and like the contestants will come out and I will forget their name. I don't know their names. I think I've got a form of face blindness. Even I think Penn Jillette has talked about that.
I've heard him talk. I heard him talk about not even recognizing his mom one.
Yes. Yeah. Now I don't think I'm that bad, but there are times when I'll see somebody and I have no idea who they are. And we've been out to eat before and we'll have people a guy came up to me. This was a couple years ago, but he comes up to our table. He's like, David, how you doing? I'm like, hey man. He goes, long time no see. I'm like, yeah. And we talked for 5 minutes and he walked away and my wife's like, you have no idea who that was, do you? I'm like, I have no idea who that was. And it really does. I'm getting really good at faking it though.
That's good.
But I wish I didn't have to because, it kind of freaks me out though. Sometimes I'm that bad with names and faces.
That's good. And then kind of in a broader sense, what makes you keep coming back for more tattoos? I'm totally curious.
I don't know. I didn't get my first one until 10 years ago. It was 2000, 11 years ago, 2000. So I was just turning 40. Had always wanted a tattoo, just never got one. So my cousin calls me and he says, hey, I think I'm gonna get a tattoo. You want to go in and talk to the guy? I'm like, yeah, I want one. Let's go in and talk to him. So I ended up now I have 11. He still doesn't have one. But they are absolutely addicting. I love them. And I'll tell you a funny story. I want a blue dragon. And my wife, I've talked about my wife. Every time I talk about my wife in this episode, I've said something bad about her. Like she's complained. I swear she's the most awesome person in the world. She keeps me fairly grounded. But she's like, you don't need a blue dragon. It means nothing to you. Cause I want all my tattoos mean something to me. There's a meaning behind it. She's like, you don't need a blue dragon. Cause the only reason I want a blue dragon was I like the color blue in the tattoo. I wanted the bold blue tattoo. And I thought I got room on this arm to put some. I thought I could come up around here, and then the head of it could be right here. And I said, but I just want one. She's like, you're not getting the blue dragon. It means nothing to you. I'm like, yeah, but I just want one. So for like a couple months, I kept talking about it. She's like, you're not getting the blue dragon. It means nothing. So finally, I started calling Sebastian, our now 20-year-old Blue Dragon. I changed his name in our phones to Blue Dragon, had people at our church. I'm like, hey, anytime you talk to Tab, my wife, I said, ask, and you talk about Sebastian, call him Blue Dragon. So everybody's going up to my wife and saying, hey, I hear Blue Dragon is getting ready to go into the fire academy. She's like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what's going on here. So now I'm like, I need to get a Blue Dragon because that's what we call our son. And she's like, no, we don't. We don't call him Blue Dragon. She's like, you're just an idiot. I'm like, yeah, that's true.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I got my first. It's a little hand holding
nice.
The 6 of hearts. This was like my first Svengali deck. It was a 6 of hearts. That was the thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I just got that a few months ago. Yeah.
So are you wanting another one yet? Have you thought about it? I can't remember how long after my first one I thought I got to get another one.
I think not right now, but of course this does lend to something attached.
Oh yeah.
To the hand at some point.
Yeah. Man, I just love them. All those new one that I got, she is awesome. Like if you can see up close, her line work is amazing. And I just haven't posted on Instagram yet because I want to be done first. I may show like a before or the outline and then the color once I get them both done. But she's got a cordless gun now. It's not every tattoo I've gotten is corded. She's got one that doesn't have a cord on it. It's a little quieter, which I like the sound of the tattoo. This one is a little quieter, but I know it was kind of nice for her that there was no cord bothering her. She's zipping away on it. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what my next one is, because this one was supposed to be here. I've got here, and then my forearm, I got nothing like right here. I need something there because there's just space there. And this was supposed to go there, but this was too big to put here. So yeah, I've got room still.
Makes sense.
I just got to find something that I need.
Well, when they get to Instagram, I'm excited to see them. I'll keep a lookout for the blue dragon.
Yeah, there's still, I got to make it happen. I got to get the blue dragon, even if it's just for the story now. The fact that we've argued back and forth about me getting the blue dragon. Now I do have a story. I do have a reason to get the blue dragon.
Yes, that's a story you can always tell. And
that's right.
Before we go, we have some magicians watching. Is there anyone, anything that you want to plug that you have going forward?
There's really not. I know it sounds ridiculous. I didn't even know, the Penguin live thing that I did. I didn't even know I was going to do that until the day before we shot the performance video. So I've never really been like somebody who has stuff to promote. I'm not really much of a creator. I'm just more of a performer. So yeah, I got nothing. I guess I have, if this is still going on, I started a podcast with a buddy of mine. It's not magic related. It's called Baloney Lips and the Woolly Worm. He's a black guy from Kentucky, comedian, and we just talk about we have fun with the differences in races and like crack jokes and have fun with it and which I think we should be able to do. So we have a lot of fun with that. But other than that, I got nothing going. I know, how boring is that? I've got nothing.
Well, your Penguin lecture was awesome. That was the.
Well, thanks.
I'd seen a few videos of you online, but that was the first time when I was able to see a full act of yours. So.
Oh, okay.
So on behalf of you, I will say that your Penguin lecture is absolutely awesome and a great introduction to comedy magic.
Well, I appreciate that big time. It was a blast to do. I was terrified. And if you saw the interview when I did it with Dan, that I was scared to death because in the performance, I do like three sleight of hand things, and that's it. And I'm like, no magician. I told Sean Dunn, the guy who booked me from Penguin, I said, nobody's going to want to watch this. No magician is going to buy this because I'm not doing anything to fool them. And it ended up getting, I was blown away and humbled and appreciated the response that it got. So I was really happy with how it ended up and how people accepted it, because I thought for sure I was going to get ripped apart.
Yeah.
And people were like, why did I buy this? I know everything he's doing.
Yeah, well, it's well deserved. And
well, thank you.
David, I just want to say thank you so very much for doing this. It really was a huge pleasure to have you on here.
No problem. Thanks for having me. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Again, a huge thank you to David McCreary for taking the time to talk with me. David was so kind and gracious during this interview and is one of the easiest guys to just have a conversation with. Thank you all for tuning in, and if you want to help out this podcast, please, please, please leave a review and share it with someone who would enjoy it as well. If you have any questions or want to make a donation to help the podcast, email jake@jakestrongmagic.com. I've enjoyed your comments so far, and I'm excited to see the ones in the future. This is currently a very small project that I've been working on, but I would love to see it grow even more than it has already and reach as many people as possible. Thanks again, everyone. As I always say, stay safe, and I'll see you next week.